Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show, where we watch old 16mm films, and sometimes we watch films that don't have sound. That film was from 1928, and they didn't really have sound. They had experimental sound, but so old film from the Mogul Brothers collection via Oregon Archive. So for newcomers, usually start off with a silent film, just to kind of do a sound check with the projector sound. And I have a lot of silent material. I have home movies. I have a lot of things that don't have sound. So I'd like to highlight those as well and give you an opportunity to watch stuff that you probably wouldn't be able to watch otherwise. So that's that. So behind me I have a telecine, which is hooked up to a converter box, which is hooked up to another cable, which is hooked up to this Mac, which is hooked up to the internet. And we're going to watch the film, What is a Family? Enjoy.
Hello. Hey, you're cute. I like you. I'm gonna like it here.
Here?
Sure. I'm gonna live here with you. Would you like that?
Well, I guess so, but...
Good. Then it's settled. Do you live here all alone?
No, I live here with my family.
What's a family?
A family is the people who love you and take care of you.
How many people is that?
Well, different families have different numbers of people.
What's that mean?
It's like you could have, say, one mother, one father, and one child. That would make a family of
3.
Or you could have one mother, one father, 2 boys, and 2 girls. That would make a family of
6.
Or you could have one mother and 3 children. That would make
4. Hey, now I understand. Different families have different numbers of people.
That's what I said.
But what about your family?
Well, there's my mother, that's 1. My father, that's 2. My sister, that's 3. My brother, that makes 4. There are 4 people in my family.
You mean 5, don't you?
Oh yes, I forgot about me. There are 5 people in my family, counting me.
Only 5? Then you have a smaller family than some of my friends.
What friends?
Oh, here comes one now.
Hello.
My friend the cat has a larger family than yours.
That's right. I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers and 1 mother.
That makes 7.
And me. That makes 8. And my mother keeps us neat and clean, just like your mother takes care of you.
My family is smaller than yours. I have 1 sister and we look alike. Do you look like your sister?
I don't think so. We don't have the same color hair. I have blonde hair. My sister has...
Black hair?
Red hair?
I know. She has gray hair, like mine.
My sister has brown hair like my mother.
Does your sister look exactly like your mother?
No.
Like your father?
No. Mothers and fathers are older than children, so they can't look exactly the same.
How old are they?
Well, my brother is 10, my sister is 9, and I'm only 6. but I go to school just like they do.
What school?
Yes, what school?
I've never been to school.
That's because school is not for clowns and cats and squirrels. Schools are for children. They meet new friends and learn lots of new things.
What kinds of things?
Well, we learn about animals and their families. Did you know that animals have families?
Of course I know that.
And birds have families.
I know that too.
And the mothers and fathers feed the young ones and protect them.
Yes, I know that too.
And teach them which is the right thing to do and which is the wrong thing to do.
Yup, I know that too.
There are big animal families with lots of children like fish and chickens.
Do you know any people families that are big?
I have a friend at school who has 7 brothers and a sister.
That's a big family, all right.
I have another friend with a big family. He has 3 sisters and a brother.
Do any of your friends have small families?
Well, there's a girl, only a mother and father and a brother. And there's another who has only a mother. I guess you could say that's a small family.
I know some small animal families. I know some big ones, too.
How does Mother Goose know which little ones are hers?
Mothers always seem to know which little ones are hers, even when they look alike.
Monkeys look alike.
Animals and people are alike in some ways, but not every way. Animals are like people because they have,
Mothers.
and they have,
Fathers.
and sometimes they have,
Sisters and...
Brothers.
and no matter what they have, if they love and care for each other, that makes a family.
Holy cow. Yeah, that little clown puppet was right out of the box. It was creepy and was asking all these creepy, oh, I'm gonna love living here, tell me, and then he asked all these like personal questions, and it's just like, ugh. We could narrate that and make it about bad people. This next one we got is Why Food Spoil. Enjoy.
A long, long time ago, people spent much time in search of food. When a hunter killed a large animal, there was usually more than enough to eat. So the family ate and ate. The hunter's wife must have wished she knew how to keep all this food from spoiling. But there were only a few ways to keep food from going bad in those days. American pioneers, of course, knew how to preserve some foods, and they learned from the Indians how to keep others. Sometimes new ways of keeping foods were found accidentally. The news of this would spread from neighbor to neighbor. For instance, people discovered that foods keep longer in cool places. So they stored food in cellars underground that would stay cool even in the summer. But only recently have we discovered why foods spoil. Now we can buy food weeks and be sent across the country and kept in grocery stores and supermarkets for a long time with no fear of the food spoiling. Today we know that keeping food fit to eat means keeping 3 different kinds of tiny plants out of the food. These tiny plants are called molds, yeast, and bacteria. Remember the words, molds, yeast, and bacteria. Some food spoil. A slice of bread, for instance. The slice of bread should be moist. Tiny mold seeds floating in the air will fall on the bread. Then the bread should be... Do you see the fuzz that has grown on the bread? It is called bread mold. Moldy bread doesn't taste good. Let's look at this bread mold through a magnifying glass. Mold is a tiny plant. That fuzz on the bread is a small garden of mold plants, and the bread itself is the garden plot. The mold seeds were planted when they fell on the bread from the air. Notice that the bread mold has many little branches and roots. We can see that the roots of the mold grow deep into the bread, just as roots of plants grow deep into the soil. Do you see the dark cluster at the top of the mold plant on the left? With a stronger lens, we can see that this round dark cluster is a sac full of mold seeds. We call these seeds spores. Spores are so light that they float in the air, and so they can easily get into our food. If you take a brush and brush away the mold on bread, you will see dust rise. This dust is made up of the thousands of tiny spores that have grown on a single slice of bread. Most molds spoil food, but some molds can be put to work for us. Certain molds give cheese a special flavor, and so some kinds of cheese we have we owe to the different kinds of molds. But when molds grow on the wrong foods, they spoil the taste and may destroy some of the food value. With a microscope, scientists study different kinds of mold and separate those that are useful from those that are not. Different molds have different colors and shapes. There are many kinds of molds, just as there are many varieties of plants and flowers in a garden. Each mold acts on a different kind of food in a different way. It is usually easy to discover food that has become moldy because the mold plants grow on the surface, where we can see them. But some tiny plants that spoil food are almost invisible. This orange juice, for example, is being spoiled by another kind of tiny plant called yeast. See these bubbles coming up through the orange pulp in the bottom of the glass? They tell us that yeast plants are growing in the food. Yeasts are too small to be seen even with an ordinary magnifying glass, but we can see them through a microscope. These bubbles are a gas, carbon dioxide, which yeasts give off when they feed on sugar and water. As the yeasts grow and multiply, they make the juice turn sour. Like molds, some yeasts are very useful. For instance, some yeasts make bread dough rise. Mother deliberately puts a special kind of yeast in the flour she uses to bake bread. As this yeast grows, it too will give off carbon dioxide, and this gas is what makes bread dough rise. Now we can see the air holes in the bread, which have been made by the gas escaping from the yeast. So it is yeasts which make bread fluffy and light. The third kind of plant that spoils food is called bacteria. Bacteria are the smallest of all plants. They can be seen only with the aid of a strong microscope. Bacteria can be divided into 3 groups. These pictures show one bacteria from each group. One kind of bacteria is round. Another kind is shaped like a number of little sticks or rods. The third kind is formed into little chains, one connected with the other. It is difficult to imagine how small bacteria are. If all the people in the world were turned into bacteria, they would hardly cover this half-dollar coin. When meat and vegetables spoil and are no longer good for us to eat, when milk turns sour, bacteria are the cause. Once again, just as with molds and yeasts, some bacteria are useful. But because many bacteria are dangerous to our health, scientists study them. An easy way to grow bacteria is to press your fingers on this special jelly. There are sure to be bacteria on your fingers. Now cover the dish and put it in a warm, dark place for 2 days. See where the fingers touch the jelly? Millions of bacteria are growing there. They grow in a similar way on food and may make it poisonous. There are bacteria almost everywhere. We soap and water to get rid of as many bacteria as possible. Otherwise, some of the harmful ones may be carried into our body and cause disease. We have seen that 3 kinds of tiny plants may grow on foods and spoil them: molds, yeasts, and bacteria. Let's learn how to keep these tiny plants from spoiling food. One of the oldest ways of preserving food is drying it. Long ago, people noticed that some foods keep longer when dried in the sun. Fishermen in many parts of the world dry fish in the sun. The drier the fish, the longer it will keep. Some fish are dried and salted. The salt helps take the water out of the fish and keep it dry. Many kinds of meat keep longer when preserved with smoke. Let's explain why drying foods helps preserve them. To do this, we'll try an experiment. Here are some pea seeds. The one on the left has been planted on dry soil. The one on the right has been watered. The seed in the container with the moist soil is doing well, but the seed in the dry soil isn't growing at all. This experiment shows that a plant, even a tiny plant that spoils food, needs water to grow. One more experiment. These are 2 healthy young pea plants. We'll cool the plant on the right and heat the plant on the left. See how the plant on the left begins to wilt after the heat is turned on, and the cooled plant stops growing. We all know that plants don't grow in cold winter weather. Molds, yeasts, and bacteria are plants too. Here are the clues to 2 more ways of preserving foods: by heat and by cold. Food keeps in refrigerators because tiny plants either do not grow or grow so slowly that it will take a long time before the food spoils. Very low temperatures, like those in a freezer, kill some of the tiny plants and slow down the growth of others. It would take months, possibly years, to spoil food kept in a deep freeze of your home or in store freezers. A lot of foods are preserved by killing molds, yeasts, and bacteria with heat. Canning is one of the best ways to keep food from spoiling. The food is placed in jars or cans and cooked. Then it is sealed so that new molds, yeasts, and bacteria cannot enter. The heat kills the tiny plants that would make the food spoil. In this way, food will keep for many months without spoiling. Today, many people work in plants which preserve food by heating, drying, and freezing. Almost all the milk we drink is quickly heated to a temperature which kills any dangerous bacteria in the milk. We call this pasteurized milk. The people who pasteurize milk must be very careful to keep the milk at exactly the right temperature. Many of the foods we eat today are cooked and sealed tightly in cans at large canneries such as this one. Food in cans will keep almost indefinitely. Quick freezing is one of the newer ways of keeping foods. Meat, fruit, vegetables, even baked and cooked foods stay fit to eat for a long time when kept in a deep freeze at very low temperatures. This jar contains eggs. In this machine, eggs are dried so thoroughly that they turn into powder. As long as they are kept dry, no tiny plants can grow in them. Many foods can be dried into powder form. Here, special light rays are used to destroy the plants that spoil food. In this film, we have seen that molds, yeasts, and bacteria are plants that cause food to spoil. We have learned that these plants need food, moisture, and air to live. We have learned how to dry foods so that these tiny plants cannot grow in them. We have seen that low temperatures will kill most tiny plants. We have also discovered how to destroy molds, yeasts, and bacteria by heating foods. These are some of the ways to preserve foods. There are many others. We will have more and better food as scientists find new ways to keep foods from spoiling.
So, as many of you have pointed out, bacteria are not plants. We got some old science in there. Bacteria are now their own kingdom, I think as of 1977. So, there you go. I mean, that's what happens. We have old science films. Some things they don't get right because it's not valid anymore. And there's been a lot of research in bacteria and single-celled organisms and the world of fungus and molds, etc. Really interesting stuff. I've done a couple of shows at the local, well, the state North Carolina Science Museum with experts who talk about the vast amount of life in the bacterial realm, etc. Really kind of cool. All right, I got another film on the telecine behind me. It is Never Say You Can't Until You Try. Enjoy.
What's this? It's a recorder. How do you play it? You blow on the end. Not that on the other end.
Tie your shoelace, Eric. Come on, Jeanette. Your turn to climb.
The answer to this is $4.20. Let's take another problem. $1.85 times 25. Okay. Michael, you come up and answer this problem for us, please.
Bet you can't do that, Junior. Come on, try it. It's only asparagus, Michael. Try it.
What are you doing, sis? I think I'm going to try and fix up this car.
Here, let's try that again. Let's put it on, make a toot sound, a t sound. And blow gently. And when you play, cover up the holes, very tight, so no air gets out. Let's see, let me hear you play, Mary. That's better, much better. Cover up the holes. Okay, play it again. Better, much better. See the sound you're getting?
Michael, I think you better look at the example on the side of the board.
Try, keep on trying.
Let me try it by myself.
That's correct.
Ready, begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Beautiful job.
Wow. So we are gathering songs, tunes, for the upcoming toe tapping tournament. Tentatively, there's so many T's. Katrina, my wife, will be here on Friday, and we will start going through the mix. We have right now over 20 candidates, so we're going to have to pare it down to something that's a little bit more manageable. But yeah, so if it's not Friday, it might be next week. But yeah, it's time to start because we need to pick our best candidates so we can take on the Found Footage Festival, who's doing their own toe tapping tournament. And what we do is we go head to head, their top 4 versus our top 4, and we trounced them last year, but only because we had the super ringer Shake Hands with Danger, and it was also judged by the man who actually wrote Shake Hands with Danger. So I don't know how we got away with that, but we're not going to be able to do that this year. Yeah. So definitely keep posted in the comments. All right, I'm looking at the comments. of one person, Ethan, who's a new YouTube viewer. I'm not going to play video games. No, that's not what this channel is about. Sorry. That is, we watch old 16mm films and we watch them live. That's what we do here at AV Geeks. We show old films, we collect old films. If you want to see, there are scores of other people playing video games on other channels. So you can look somewhere and find them. Twitch seems to be a good place to go. In the meantime, let's learn about airplanes and how they fly. I should say that sometimes if you do a search for AV Geeks, you will come across Aviation Geeks, which is a relatively new term. I've been using AV Geeks since 1992, and Aviation Geeks is probably less than 10 years old. So, yeah, let's confuse the people who are looking for one and are finding both. So, AV being, of course, on my channel, audio-visual. AV for the other folks is aviation. So, anyways, here we go. Airplanes and how they fly. Enjoy.
Like a giant dragonfly, this winged monster crawls along the runway. The men inside it are tense, anxious as the machine rolls out for the takeoff. Now comes the big moment. The control tower calls, "Cleared for takeoff." Muscles are tense, minds alert. Here she comes. There are all types of airplanes, from the propeller-driven bomber to the peculiar-looking helicopter, to the newer, faster jet-powered planes. Airplanes are of all sizes, too, ranging from the small private plane to this giant, which can lift its immense weight more than 8 miles above the ground. Passenger planes carry people to and from the far corners of the earth in a few hours. But what is it that enables airplanes weighing hundreds of thousands of pounds to leave the ground? How do planes fly through the air? Let's take a look at a small plane and see what really happens. As an airplane gathers speed, the air rushes faster and faster over the wings. Due to the special shape of the wing, this moving air creates a partial vacuum on the top of the wing. The pressure is now greater underneath the wing, so it pushes upward, lifting the plane into the air. This force, which causes the plane to rise, is called lift. The blades of the airplane propeller are twisted like fan blades so that they bite into the air in the same way a screw bites into wood. This pulls the plane forward. As the plane moves, air rushes over the wings. Because of the shape of the wing, a partial vacuum is created above the wing. The air pressure below the wing pushes up to fill this vacuum. It is this force which lifts the plane into the air. The faster the air moves past the wing, the greater the lifting force will be. As the plane gathers speed, air rushes faster and faster. The vacuum above the wing becomes greater and the lift increases. Although a jet plane has no propeller, it's lifted into the air in exactly the same way. Air enters the jet plane through an opening in the front. It flows through a duct, back to the jet engine. The jet engine compresses the air and heats it to a very high temperature. It is then forced out the tail of the plane at tremendous speed. Let's trace the air again. In the front, back to the jet engine where it's heated by the burning fuel, and out the tail in the form of hot exhaust gases. The great force of these hot exhaust gases shooting out the tail pushes the plane forward. Some airplanes have both a jet and a propeller. The propeller to pull, the jet to push, both driven by the same engine. They are called turboprop planes. As this jet plane gathers speed, air rushes faster and faster over the wings. As soon as the lift of the wings is greater than the pull of gravity, the plane rises from the ground. Now we know something about the force that lifts airplanes into the air, but how are they controlled? How do they dive, climb, and turn? Let's go back to our small light plane again. The airplane is controlled by control surfaces, which are located in the tail and at the rear edge of the wing. The rudder is used to steer it right or left. The elevators make it go up or down. The ailerons are used to tip or bank the plane to either side. The pilot moves these control surfaces by using the controls located in the cockpit. The rudder is moved to right or left by foot pedals. On this plane, the elevators are moved by pushing the wheel forward or back. And the ailerons are moved by turning the wheel. Some airplanes use a stick for controlling elevators and ailerons in much the same manner, but the wheel is more common. Now let's see how these controls affect the plane in flight. In level flight, the controls are in their center or neutral position. When the wheel is pushed forward, the elevators are lowered. The air strikes the lowered elevators and forces the tail of the plane up, causing the plane to dive. A turn requires the use of both rudder and ailerons together. The pilot pushes the right rudder pedal, the rudder swings to the right. At the same time, he turns the wheel to the right. This moves the aileron so that the left wing is raised and the right wing is lowered. The combination of the two controls produces a right turn. Even the very largest airplanes have exactly the same controls as our small plane. The elevators and rudder of this giant plane are so large that the pilot has special machinery to help him move them. Let's watch this giant preparing for flight. First, the engines are started and warmed. Every detail is checked and rechecked. Everything must function perfectly before flight. Everything in readiness, the airplane begins to move slowly, almost clumsily, out to the takeoff runway. Notice that this airplane has its propellers on the back of the wing. Thus, instead of pulling the plane through the air, these propellers push. Now the big plane comes roaring down the runway, its 6 huge engines wide open, 6 big windmills biting into the air, tons of metal rushing forward faster and faster. Smoothly and almost unnoticed, the wheels leave the ground and the gigantic ship is in the air. When you see an airplane flying high overhead, stop and think. Think of the astounding speed of the jet airplane, this plane that flies a mile in 6 seconds, the time it takes you to tie one shoe if you're fast. Think of the enormous size of some of our larger planes. Think of the tremendous lifting power these wings must have to lift this giant into the air. And remember that this lifting power is caused by the air rushing past the specially shaped wings. When the lift of the wings is greater than the pull of gravity, the plane rises into the air. Remember the control surfaces that enable airplanes to dive, climb, and turn. All controlled from within the cockpit by the pilot. Think, too, of the importance of the airplane in our everyday life. Fast, safe transportation to almost any point in the world in a few hours' time. The airplane is constantly being improved. Many planes only a year old are already out of date. For ever since the airplane was first invented, men have been striving to fly faster, higher, and safer than ever before. The airplane of the future, we know only that it will be faster, better, and safer than the airplane of today.
Thankfully, I was muted. Yikes. I still have a touch of the bronchitis that's being exacerbated by pollen. Anyways, yeah, that was a great film, Centron. And no apologies. I don't show these films to get more viewers. If I wanted more viewers, one, I wouldn't be hosting it because I'm an old dude. I just barely comb my hair. I barely shave every day. You know, there's lots of things I could do to make this more palatable. And I could certainly show things that more people would be interested in, but I'm sorry. That's not what we're here for. We're here to watch old 16mm films, of which we have 30,000 films. And, you know, it might just be down to 5 of us a year from now, where there's just like, yeah, Skip's uncompromising in what he does, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. So, anyways, so yesterday there was a lot of films that we showed unexpectedly that dealt with looking at the Earth from above. That Power and Wheels film, the No Frames, No Boundaries. Then I showed the Powers of 10 sketch film. Well, this one is probably in keeping with that. This is If You Could See the Earth. Enjoy.
For millions of years, man has lived on the Earth and has had some very strange ideas about it. Because it looked flat, he decided that it was flat. Definitely flat. In India, centuries ago, Some people thought that the Earth rested on the backs of huge elephants. The elephant stood on a giant turtle, which swam forever in an endless sea. There were ancient Greeks who believed that the flat Earth was surrounded by an ocean, with towering pillars supporting the sky, with the sun, the moon, and all of the stars. There were those who insisted that the Earth had an edge, beyond which lived frightful demons. If you came too close to the edge, as time went on, however, people became dissatisfied with these ideas of what the Earth was like. It could be flat, they reasoned, because it looked flat and felt flat. But why did the sun always set in one place in the evening and rise the next morning in another? Why did ships disappear below the horizon as they sailed out to sea? If the Earth were not flat, and if a ship sailed, always in the same direction, it might eventually return to where it had started. When a ship did indeed sail around the Earth, man could no longer doubt its shape. It was round. Today, if you were an astronaut, you could fly far out into space and see what the Earth is really like.
1, fire, 0.
From here you can see that the Earth is a sphere that seems to hang in space. If you take a closer look, you can see that it is partly covered with water, or oceans, and partly with land, which we know as continents. Notice that there is about twice as much water as there is land. That each continent has mountains, valleys, deserts, lakes, and rivers, each a different size and shape. The Earth turns constantly. This is called rotation.
Rotation? How does it work?
Find something that's round. The orange will do. Anything shaped like this, we call a sphere. Next, we need a stick. Now, push the pencil through the middle of the orange. The orange turns or rotates around the pencil. The pencil can be called an axis, the axis around which the orange turns. Now let's look at the Earth. It turns just like the orange.
But the Earth doesn't have an axis.
The Earth's axis isn't something that you can see or touch like the pencil, but it does have one. If you could see it, it might look like this, with the North Pole at one end and the South Pole at the other. Although we can't see the axis, the Earth still turns or rotates around it. Now let's go farther out into space, where we can see both the Earth and the sun. Outside the capsule, you will simply float, because in space, things don't fall down as they do on Earth. From here, we can see that the sun's rays shine on the Earth, giving heat and light. But does the sun shine on all of the Earth at once? On the side that's facing the sun, it's daytime on the Earth. But what about the side that's facing away from the sun? What's happening there? Yes, people are asleep because it's nighttime on the dark side of the Earth. What does the rotation of the Earth have to do with night and day?
The Earth's rotation causes day to change into night, and night into day again. Let's see. A day is 24 hours long. So, that must mean it takes a day for the Earth to make one rotation.
We've learned something about the Earth here in space, but there's more to learn back on Earth itself. Can we find out, for instance, why things always fall to the Earth? They don't in space. Why is it that unless something is held up, it always falls down?
Is there some kind of force which pulls us and everything else to the Earth?
There is, and the force is called gravity. Pick an apple. Let go of it. What pulled it down? What pulls them all to the Earth? Gravity. If it weren't for gravity, our Earth might be a rather difficult place in which to live. Everything would float, like an astronaut in space. Gravity keeps us and everything around us on the ground and holds us there. We've learned a lot about the Earth, but we've only begun. To learn more, we can use a model of the Earth, a globe. Like the Earth, the globe is a sphere. Its surface is divided into oceans and continents, and it rotates on an imaginary axis, just as the Earth itself. Wherever the sun shines on the Earth, it's daytime. And wherever it doesn't, it's night. Rotation causes day to change into night, and night back into day again. Gravity causes things to fall to the Earth, and holds them there. Actually, the globe can help with many questions about the Earth. Why do we have winter and summer? Why do the seasons change? Why is it colder at the North Pole than at the equator? Why do snow and ice never melt at the North and South Poles? Why do we have temperate zones and equatorial regions?
So many questions. Holy cow. Yeah, some people notice that green streak. That's an emulsion scratch. So you have two different types of scratches in a film. One is on the back, which would be more of a black scratch, and what that's actually from is light hitting it, and then it's a shadow. And you can use a wet gate to fill that in temporarily with a chemical that has the index of refraction close to the film base. So that can be alcohol, denatured alcohol, and also perk, which is dry cleaning fluid, which I used to use, but it is crazy toxic. It's like it'll drip on your skin, and then your skin turns ashen and starts tingling. No, we don't do that anymore. So even with denatured alcohol, we have to be careful. So anyways, if it's scratched into the emulsion is the gelatin that has all the different color information in it, or black and white information in it, and that will, if that gets scraped, then it's either green or it's white, and that's harder to fill in. You can't really use a fluid to do that. And what some labs do is they actually wash the film so that it puffs up a little bit, so the emulsion puffs up and kind of squeezes in and fills in some of those emulsion scratches. But we don't have that technology here, so we just let it float. The green. Anyways, geeked out pretty hard. Thank you, Nathan, for the coffee. Coffee's a great way to support AV Geeks because we drink it. It is our drug of choice. So you can buy us coffee at ko-fi.com/avgeeks. You can also visit avgeeks.com and see literally thousands of videos that we have online that we've digitized over the last 10 or so years. And we've been doing this for 30 years. Holy cow, I just realized that. Yeah. See us tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. It'll be great. I won't be playing video games tomorrow, sorry. But I will be showing you some old 16mm films that you've never seen before. And maybe some you have. But that's what we do here. Everybody have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we will see you soon. Take care.